Good morning. I'm Hugh Lufton, Principal of Lufton Associates Chartered Planning Consultancy. This is the fifth in a series of hopefully informative videos about the planning system. This one is I've done because I'm dealing with some of these matters at the moment, and it's about making representations on planning applications and whether to do individual objections, whether to do group objections, or whether to form some sort of action or campaign group. So my usual sort of top tip is, if you can, don't make individual objections on planning grounds. Try and form together as a group of neighbours, as a group of local interested parties. To some extent, really, the bigger the better. The bigger the group, the better. What I advise clients is yes, by all means, make individual household objections to issues that of concern to you, and put personal issues related to planning issues in those objections or supports, whatever, or responses. But also try and formulate a representative group that's more than just an individual household. Really is, in a sense, the more the better. If you can provide some sort of more unified view to the planning authority, they're likely to take a lot more notice of it. It's a lot easier for them to manage, and it's a lot easier later on in the process. Say if that application were to go to committee, which controversial applications through delegation process for local authorities probably are quite likely to end up at committee, and it's certainly easier if you choose to get involved. If the application gets refused and the application goes through an appeal process, it's much easier for a group to act in the appeal process, particularly if it's a public inquiry. And that is down to really representation, because a planning committee, most local authorities will only allow one objector at planning committee, so you can't all rock up and have your say. You can only sit in the audience and watch. You can only have one representative. So if you formulated an action group or a residents group or a group of neighbours, either choosing your best spokesperson or paying to have professional representation, just makes the process much easier. You can't all ring up the planning committee clerk and say that you all want to appear at planning committee. They just won't entertain that. Most planning committees will only allow, as I say, one objector, and they usually, it's sort of between, it varies, but it's between about a 3 and 5 minute presentation. And also most local authority planning committees are very strict about that as well. I've been to committees on a number of occasions where they have a light system, and green light comes on when you can speak and the red light goes off and they tell you to shut up and sit down. So really that is my top tip, is group together. When you're making representations or objections, try and keep to planning issues. Now, if you're making them as an individual household and there may be particular issues that you want to make because a development or proposal affects you in a particular way, then by all means do that, and put those individual human points across. The planning officers will pick up on those. What they won't be interested in is lots and lots and lots of the same objection, just repeating the same things over and over again from every household in the street or every household in the neighbourhood. They're not really interested in that. Once they've seen the first one, they've pretty much got it. So as I say, an action group or neighbourhood group or local group representation, I feel, will hold greater weight. If that is done on your behalf by a planning professional, all the better. It needs to be referenced to policies. It needs to be referenced to those issues where the planning authority is going to make the decision. I would advise, if you're formulating an action group, that you appoint a chairperson, you appoint a single point of contact for professional dealings. So if you're going to employ a planning consultant or you're going to employ somebody to represent you professionally, it's very helpful them to have a single point of contact with the action group or with your neighbourhood group. By all means, they'll come and meet a group, but it's easier if they have a single point of contact. Also, I feel it's helpful if you separate discussions and communication with elected members from discussions and communication with planning officers in the local authority. Obviously, clearly there's a distinction, one are paid, one are elected. There's certain things that you would approach your councillor, your local councillor about, say to get get a controversial application called into planning committee, but they're not the same as the discussions that you'll be having with the planning officers at the local authority, which will be about technical issues, policy issues, process issues related to the planning application. So if you can separate those two, I think that's very wise. It's more helpful, and the process will be that much more easy to follow. Yeah, as I say, wider constitution of the of your neighbourhood group and action group as you can. This may sound a little ridiculous, but it's better if you can have an age range on that action group as well. So it's not just all middle-aged and elderly people making objections. If you can get a broader constitution to that action group, the better. Just comes across better. Simple as that, really. Also, it's a bit of a bugbear. It's a bit of a tip, really, but when you're making representations, if you're making representations as an individual, I worked in local authority for 19 years. I've seen hundreds and hundreds of planning objections. Don't overemphasize your professional qualifications. If you're it's great if you're qualified in medicine, you're a doctor, or you're an airline pilot, fantastic, well done you. But the planning officer is not really interested in your experience in medicine and the fact that you're a brilliant surgeon. They're interested in in what you've got to say about this particular planning application. If anything, I really feel that sometimes would dilute what you're saying. Now, by all means, if you have a very relevant qualification, if you're an engineer, if you're an acoustic engineer or something like that, and you've got particular issues to say, particular issues to raise about noise, for example, then by all means do that. But as I say, just putting your professional qualifications onto an objection as if because you're a medical doctor somehow your objection should hold greater weight, it just doesn't wash with the planning authority, and if anything it does tend to dilute them. So sort of avoid that, please, if you can. So some top tips, really. I mean, the main issue is try and form as big a group as you can. Try and see if you can make that group representative, appoint a chairperson, appoint a treasurer. If you're raising money, get somebody to manage the money. That's always a wise thing to do. The more professional and organised you can come across, the better. I've worked for probably one of the largest action groups, planning action groups in the country, which actually have 4,000 paid up members. Obviously, the issue's going on for a long time. They were extremely professionally constituted and had, their views really held sway and were very influential in dealing with the local authority. So don't expect you to form an action group with 4,000 members if you're complaining about somebody's extension. But if it's a major issue and it's going to run for some time, the application's going to take some time, the process is going to take some time, and it's going to go through appeals and so on, then really an action group or a sort of planning focus group of local residents is the way forward. Okay, that's just what I've got to say on this issue at the moment. Have a good day. Thanks a lot. Bye.